Good afternoon. We are live. It is the Chicken Box. It is another wonderful Thursday. Some places it's warm, some places it is still freezing. I'm Kevin Impeccable Peck, the host of the Chicken Box, along with, let me just say, I represent the Gen X's and I represent them well. Okay. I own every bit of Gen X and I'm going to stick with it. I understand the other gens, but I'm going to stay right where I am. Dr. Draper, my boomer
Well,
millennial friend. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time zone your body's in.
I'm in the Eastern time zone, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Frances Tony Draper, CEO and publisher of the Afro, and I am a millennial boomer. I actually, if you looked at age, I'm in the boomer category, but if you look at how I flow, you might say I'm in the millennial category sometimes, even though I think I'd rather be in the Gen Z. No disrespect, Misha, but go ahead.
I agree wholeheartedly. I'm so impressed by Gen Z as well, but I always represent for the boomer millennials because I have such an appreciation for boomer culture and boomer music and boomer innovations. But I'm a millennial through and through. And I'm really happy to be here from the shy. So it's still morning for me, but I'm feeling good and happy to be with you all.
Absolutely. If you just tuned in, this is the Chicken Box where we dispel stereotypes, we speak our truths. And if you're from the Baltimore area, a chicken box, by the way, is four wings and fries. Now, sometimes in other parts of the country, you have your four wings and fries comes in the box. It gets greasy from time to time. You put salt and pepper, ketchup, sometimes hot sauce. If you're hungry, hey, go grab your lunch and join us if you're already eating. If it's dinner time in Africa, wherever you are, that's what the chicken box is. So if you're ever in the Baltimore area, come get a chicken box. But on this show, powered by the Afro American newspaper, yes, Maryland's oldest family owned black media company in the state and the third oldest black business in the country, celebrating our 130 years in just a couple of months now. But look, we're going to get into it. Today's topic, we always verse in something. We want to know what our community does, what we think about a topic, and we want to talk about Black people versus the real Black press. And some people may say, I know what the real Black press is. And some people might say, what are you talking about, Impeccable? We're going to get into it. We're going to say why we need the Black press, why the Black press is so influential, strong, important, educated, off the chain. Anyway, all of these things we're gonna get to later. But those are our topics for today. Black people versus the real Black press. So, and if we have some journalists out there, they're probably editing my speech right now. But really, as we go along, as you'll find, the real Black press is more than just words on the paper. So, like I said, over 130 years, we've been celebrating even longer, 200 years for the Black press. Started with the Freedom's Journal, and next week is Black Press Week. And we thought it not robbery that we really get into a conversation. So, Misha, we have some special guests because the Black press is all over, not only the United States but all over the world, and we wanted to bring on some of our colleagues so that we could just have a fireside chat, a nice conversation about the real Black press, not the people who are posing just to get Black dollars and get advertising dollars, but the real Black press. Misha.
Yes, no, you're so right. I think this is going to be such a great conversation. I was backstage, not officially in the conversation a little bit earlier, and I was saying I'm enjoying this publisher's chat just because it's so cool to hear these Black leaders who, first and foremost, put storytelling of African American narratives first and helping uplift our people. And so these are not folks who are Black and journalists. These are not Black journalists that happen to work for a newspaper owned by a white person, but telling Black news. This is the real Black press, Black owned publications, and our colleagues in the fight for telling the truth. And so I'll introduce our first person, and I want to say I have like admired her from afar for many, many years, covering NNPA conferences and Black Press Week. You will see when she comes on. She's so fly and so beautiful, but also so incredibly smart. So I am happy to introduce the Atlanta Voice newspaper, Janice L. Ware. She's a native Atlantan, and she graduated from the historic Booker T. Washington High School and was one of the first African American females to graduate from the University of Georgia's prestigious Terry College of Business. She earned an MBA in project management from American Intercontinental University and completed NeighborWorks Achieving Excellence program facilitated by, you got it right, Harvard University. Janice began working for the Atlanta Voice after college, after the death of her father, J. Lowell Ware. And the Atlanta Voice newspaper is a paper that has been serving Atlanta since 1966 and provides news and information on matters of concern to the African American community, just like you guys know what we do here at the Afro. And the Atlanta Voice has transitioned to online coverage, electronic distribution, and digital content production. And I should also share that Ware is also the executive director of the SUMMECH Development Corporation, a position she's held since 1991. Can I say that was the year I was born? I'm very amazed by that. She is recognized through the Atlanta housing community as one of the first urban pioneers willing to make a difference by building affordable homes for first-time home buyers in the Mechanicsville neighborhood. And under her direction, the organization has developed more than 1,700 housing units independently and in partnership with for-profit developers. Finally, she is serving on numerous leadership boards and has many leadership positions in the media and housing. And she currently serves as the first vice chair of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, aka NNPA, and treasury of Local Media Association. She's also chairman of the board of the Southside Medical Center, chairman of the Metropolitan Atlanta Land Bank Authority, and serves on the board of Atlanta Technical College. And without further ado, I told y'all she was fly and beautiful, Miss Janice Ware.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for being with us today. And as part of the tradition of the Chicken Box, we say which generation we're representing. So if you don't mind, what generation are you representing today?
It is
so, I don't know. So maybe I can be a boomer. How about that?
I love that. Yeah, you see, Dr. Draper and I like to mix ours.
Be a boomer.
Love that. Love that. I think Dr. Draper is introducing our next guest.
Yes, and welcome to my boomer colleague, Janice Ware. She is a phenomenal woman. And so I'm pleased to introduce a millennial, Patrick Washington. He identifies there. He's publisher of the Dallas Weekly, born in Dallas, to Victoria and James Washington. And Jim Washington is also a Black press brother, so shout out to him. And Janice will have to tell us, or Patrick may want to tell us how all of that works. And so Victoria was an artist, James an entrepreneur. And so they instilled in Patrick the idea of being unique, creative, and never working for anyone but yourself. We should stop right there and applaud that. He's a graduate of Booker T. Washington High School for the Performing and Visual Arts, and that's in Dallas. And he and his colleagues started a t-shirt company, which began the foundation for a future of business development. So he started young, and after high school, Patrick attended Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia. He majored in mass media studies with a concentration on film. And so he combined his parents' talent for art and language, and he knew that the relationships he was building at the historical Clark Atlanta University, HBCU, were networks that he would need later to achieve his goal of becoming a filmmaker. Misha, you and Patrick have something in common there. And so those goals were stifled by, he had a stint in Hollywood media right after college. He was a little disappointed, but he moved back home to Dallas and he began working with his dad, Jim, in the family newspaper, the Dallas Weekly. helping create. He's a very creative young man, and so creating new ideas for the company. And that's where the past met the future. And the new Dallas Weekly magazine and media company was born. And reaching back to his past, he reached out to as many artists and media degree friends to create a digital network of content creators to rejuvenate the newspaper into the multimedia brand. Now working earnestly and with much dedication, Patrick Washington is taking many strides in rebranding and re-educating the DFW, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and the world of the capabilities of the Dallas Weekly. And he's actively involved in the greater African community of Dallas and beyond. You all been to Dallas, it's sprawling. And so welcome, Patrick. We are glad to have you.
Thank you. I wish I had all them accolades that you came after Janice. It's like board member. Like, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, Patrick, that's okay. I was thinking the same thing, but like we're millennials, okay? You know, we have our time to work our way up there.
Congratulations, Patrick, on being on the show. And what I'm hearing, I think the Black press will be doing some movies and some theater. We have all these theater majors who come to the newspaper. So I was just thinking, why don't we just put it together? If you just tuned in, this is the Chicken Box. Good morning and good evening or good afternoon, whatever it means to you. And if you haven't done it all day long, this is the time that you need to smile. Just look at yourself and think wonderful things of yourself. You know, it's something called an affirmation. You can say one good thing about yourself a day and just change your life. You go through all this day, you talk about all the negative news and all the things, and you're complaining and you haven't said one good thing. You might not even say good morning to God. So if you haven't, now's the time. This is the Chicken Box. We're going to speak our truth. This is the Black people versus the real Black press. Black people, do we really know what the Black press is? We're going to find out. We have one more person to introduce, and that is Chris Bennett. I'm going to introduce him. Chris, welcome all the way from Seattle. So we got from Baltimore to Seattle. They did a movie a long time ago, but anyway, that's called Sleepless in Seattle. Maybe dating ourselves. Anyway, this is when the internet first started and said you got mail. But Chris, publishing CEO of Taliban Publishing Company Incorporated. Yes, the Seattle Medium, Metro Homemaker, Tacoma True Citizen, and Portland Media newspapers. Collectively, these newspapers, which are primarily serve the African American community, are part of the largest minority-owned and operated media outlet in the Pacific Northwest. You guys have some phenomenal bios. We can't read it all, but he's a second-gen publisher. That means that one generation left something for another generation, and he's continuing the legacy, everybody. Chris is largely responsible for increasing readership and revenue. Revenue is important. We need to be able to not be controlled by other media so that we can tell our story best for our people, the best. And for just creating digital footprints, just using all of the skills, talents, and resources that he has to impact readers. Chris has been involved in many community service efforts, and he's served on many commissions and boards. Seattle Human Rights Commission. Man, listen, your list goes on. Chris is part of Gen X. You know, a lot of times Gen X, we just let our work speak for ourselves. So welcome to the Chicken Box, my brother. Let's jump into the conversations. Thank you, Rika, Jewel, Q, anybody else who's looking in, put in where you're listening from. Diane, Lois, just put in the chat. That's how we know. We can't bring everybody onto the show, but that's how we know you're with us. You know, you can put a little emoji, little fist pump, whatever you want to put. We're getting to the Black people versus the real Black press. And what we do here on the Chicken Box is we get 30 seconds, right? So everybody, we're going to get 30 seconds to jump on the box right now. I want to know, what does the real Black press mean to you? Okay, we're going to start with Janice. Janice, you're on the box. Real Black press.
So I think for me, real Black press are institutions and organizations that are owned, operated, led, and directed by people of African American descent. It has been a pleasure and a joy for me to follow in my father's footsteps for these past 50 years, because without having a Black press that is committed to telling our stories our way, we won't, our voices are not going to be heard. So I'm excited to be here. I think that it is important for the Black press to survive and to thrive. And we have no other way to actually make certain that our stories are being told from our vantage point unless we actually tell our stories and communicate that effectively to our marketplace.
The real Black press, Black people versus the Black press. All right, we'll go to Patrick. Patrick down in the DFW.
Yeah, the question was, what does the Black press mean to me? Correct.
The real Black press.
So the real Black press. Well, to me, as like Janice is second, we call it a 2.5 generation because my father's bequeathed the paper by a man named Tony Davis, who was his mentor, and then of course it was me. So we do look at that as the through line, and I always looked at it as that. It's the through line. It's the story told that never breaks throughout history that we started and we will continue. And that's important to maintain, as Janice said. I really couldn't say any better. It's managed, maintained, owned, operated, and for Black people. And it's the voice, it's the advocacy, it's the history, it's the new age griot, if you will. And that's what it really means to me, is being a part of that legacy, that immortality, and seeing something born. Like my son was just born 5 years ago, and it's like, I can see it more. I can see the next way it can go, even if he doesn't want to take the throne. So
boom, it's the through line, y'all. If y'all didn't get it, this is the real Black press. Man, I love how you said that. If you are not getting excited about Black business today, it is time to refocus because Black people are starting businesses, and a lot of these businesses go generational for years. These were some of the first businesses, the first media companies, before Facebook, before any of that even existed. We were here. Okay, Misha, real Black press, you're on the box.
Well, I think when I think the real Black press, I think of fearlessness and really a bravery and audaciousness that just shows the power of Black people. Of course, I base things off of the history and facts as a journalist. And you think of the Freedom's Journal in 1827 when Black people were still slaves or enslaved. Let me get that right, okay? Because we were kings and queens and engineers and doctors and journalists. But they were still enslaved in 1827. You think about the audacity of our founder and considering the fact that again, a very small percentage of African Americans could read at the time. And so I think of folks and leaders who have no option, have no choice but to share the truth to their people. And so it's because they're brave, it's because they're powerful, but it's also because they feel like they are responsible and have to do so. And so I think the Black press is full of really superheroes, people who could have done other things, right? I mean, there were so many other things that Black entrepreneurs could have done in 1892, for example, other than starting a newspaper where many of the people that he was reaching out to could not read. But it was because we needed those stories. It's because we needed to understand the trajectory of our people. And we also needed to grow. And I think because of the Black press and because of the history of the Black press and what we have in our archives, all around, we are still able to grow. And so it's just an honor and humbling to be a part of that legacy. I'm off the box.
She off the box. I'm gonna get you a couch for the box, like I told you.
Yes.
Chris Bennett from the Seattle Medium, the real Black press. You on the box, my friend.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being on today. The real Black press to me is Black owned and operated media outlets across the country. It's news that is by Black people, for Black people, people who are unapologetic for advocacy on behalf of Black folks in this country. We tell the stories that are without filters from those outside of our community. And we're not afraid to address the issues of discrimination, not afraid to address the issues of bias across this country. And so we are the messengers of all of the information and news that's in our community across this country, something that we all take very seriously. And, we're not in here for sensationalism, but we're here to make a difference in our community.
Absolutely. Boom. All the way from Seattle. I know it's early in the morning. Thank you for joining us. All my West Coast family, if you're watching, please share, because it's somebody in your family, somebody in your community who has never heard of the Black Press. They don't know what the real Black Press is. They don't even have a clue. So just hit the little share button. It looks like an arrow going to the right or left, and share it to any of your pages, personal or business. Dr. Draper, you're on the box, the real Black Press.
The real black press is unbought and biased. And then when I say biased, don't take it in a negative connotation. We're biased towards getting the real stories out there about our community. You don't have to do something wrong to get on the front page of the Black newspaper. You don't have to be down and out. We look at our community in its totality. We have beautiful Black people with tremendous accomplishments, and you can get on the front page of any of our products on digital as well as print. And just because you are doing what you do every day, representing the community well. And somebody asked a question in the chat, and so I'm going to use a little bit of my time on the box to address this. People who don't look like us can benefit from the real Black Press. Instead of reading things about what other people think about us, the real Black Press tells the truth about who we are. And the more that we learn about one another, the better off our communities are.
Boom. I'm going to hop on the box really quick, just for a few seconds. The Black Press to me is, it's entrenched in my DNA just because of being at the Afro-American newspaper for, I'm fifth generation, and, blessed to see sixth generation. But it shows the total picture of African Americans and Black people around the country. And so it doesn't put us into a box. It gives us a chance to really learn that we are, like Misha said, architects, engineers, scientists, teachers, mothers, parents, anything under the sun that can be done, we have done it. And sometimes we always want to play in somebody else's game instead of just creating our own game. So the Black Press lets you know that you can create your own game. And that's what we're here to keep doing. Wow. Everybody tuning in, thank you. We got Atlanta, we got Baltimore. We don't have any West Coast people. Just put in the chat where you're from. We're glad to have you here during this conversation. I'm going to also get all of our publishers that are sharing with us to just in our private chat put your URL up, so I will just be able to share your website along during this broadcast. But there are many stereotypes out there, and thank you, Craig Talley, for your question. What value do you think Black Press adds to white America? Anybody else want to tackle that question before we move on? What value do you think the Black Press adds to white America?
If we're being honest, the reality is that white America is reading our newspapers. They're trying to find out what's going on in our communities, trying to get an understanding for what's going on in our communities, what we're thinking about, the issues that of concern to us. And so, a lot of people think that the Black Press is just read by Black people. But, the white community and the white press is looking at our papers too. And the white press, a lot of times, is getting the leads for stuff that they're trying to cover in our community from the Black press. A lot of these stories that make national headlines originated in the Black press, and are making their way into mainstream media after we've told the stories that nobody else would tell. So I think that's important to note as far as this conversation is going today.
Absolutely.
One of the things I would tell you is that a couple of years ago, the Atlanta Voice did a story about Fulton County. One of the counties that developed, one of the cities that was south of Atlanta, South Fulton, the city of South Fulton. And there were 7 or 8 African-American women that were leading in prominent roles in that city. So we took a really great shot and posted it to say when Black women lead. And it is amazing that CNN picked up on that story. The story went viral. I mean, all across this country and outside the country, but never really attributed the story back to the Atlanta Voice. And I think that what we need to celebrate is the fact is we tell our stories our way. We look at the other side of the story to make certain that we are presenting the full facts. I mean, the fact is in 1993, I went through a program here in Atlanta called Leadership Atlanta. and it was a combination. It was about 50 people in the program, half male, half female, Black, Asian, African American individuals in this program. And in the small group that we had to present, get together once a week over this 6 or 7 month period of time. And I talked about how the major market newspapers in Atlanta never told the whole story. And if you saw a picture of somebody African American on the news channels, it was always somebody that was being robbed, somebody that got, was raped, murdered. It was always a negative vein. And a couple of the individuals in the group said, Janice, I think you're exaggerating that story. And I said, okay, let me put a challenge out to the group. Let's go back and look at the news for the next couple of weeks, couple of days. And when we come back together, we can have this conversation again. And at that next gathering, several of the members said, I didn't realize that exactly what you said was the truth. And the fact is, I'm not going to allow my children to watch the news, because if that's all you see and that's what's presented to your children in the homes, they're going to think everybody is like that. We have created wonderful, wonderful inventions, quite talented, but you don't hear those stories. You only hear the ones that are not positive. And I think we take pride in presenting the positive side of every story that exists.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Thank you for tuning in. In case you jumped in and saw all these beautiful Black people on the screen at one time, this is Black people versus the real Black press. We have some real Black press owners who own their content, control their content, who have been inspiring, informing, and educating their communities. In case you didn't know, the Black press is all over not only the country, but the world, and they cannot shut us up. Isn't that wonderful and amazing? But we need you to also support it. And this is not a shameless plug. This is a ask in general. We need to support Black businesses. The only way that we can continue to be anonymous and to autonomous and to operate and do what we need to do to fight this fight is from the support of our people. Because if we don't support, this will really not happen, because we got young, bright journalists. As you can see, this is a multi-generational show. We got the boomers, the Gen X, and the millennials, and we got some Gen Zs watching and listening. And it's all because we have been able to support each other throughout the years, because we're still a business. So go to your local market, or you can do all of the markets and get a subscription some kind of way. It's digital or physical, and support the Black press so that we can continue on. All right, that was my ask for today. There are stereotypes, y'all. Okay, we feel like sometimes this is the new norm, right? We stream, we do things online now, but we created the digital streets. We used to be out there on the streets, so you really knew what the man on the street was talking about. So now we got to really go to the digital streets about the topic of the Black press. It was asked, Misha Green, what are those digital streets talking about when you mention the word Black press, or the real Black press?
Yes. So, let's be clear. And I'm so happy we're having this conversation, because people don't know what the real Black press is. I think people see stories on Black people or a Black journalist and think that it's the Black press. And so here recently, there have been a lot of conversations, some correctly, about the real Black press, but then just also in particular, I want to shout out, and I think we're half and half on the show today, but the Black press has traditionally embraced Black women in a way that the press has not done in many ways. And so it's Women's History Month, and the Black press, or the digital streets, is talking a lot about women in the Black press as well. As always, I must emphasize these are general stereotypes and quotes from the internet and other people, not necessarily views of the Afro. Here we go. Donna Halper tweeted, "It's Women's History Month. Ethel Payne was often called the first lady of the Black press. She covered politics, civil rights, Vietnam, and other news for print, and then for radio. She was one of the first Black women included in the White House press corps." Then Liz Dwyer, referencing Ta-Nehisi Coates and Nicole Hannah-Jones, said, "Amen, because the Black press and Black people can't pretend to have no skin in the game when it comes to American democracy. I should also say, publishers, be listening carefully because you need to reply to these things. And also, our folks out there, tell us what you're thinking about what folks are saying. The America's Black Holocaust Museum tweeted also about Ethel Payne. And this comes from some of the work that she did right here in Chicago, where I am. Ethel Payne is known as the first lady of the Black press throughout her career. She was known for asking tough questions. A civil rights activist, she witnessed some of the United States' most monumental moments and wrote about them in the Chicago Defender. Someone else said, actually, this came from a piece that we did on Alice Dunnigan, who was a big time Black press writer, and I believe actually she'd be credited as the first Black woman to several press corps. But anyway, the Sacramento Observer retweeted it and shared our story on the streets, which got a lot of fun and people talking about Alice Dunnigan, who was the first Black woman accredited to many press corps. She represented the Black press at the highest levels and paved the way for the scores of journalists who still follow today. And the Sacramento Observer says, have you heard of her and what she's done? So tell us in the chat, have you? And then finally, Cheryl Thompson Morton of the Black Media Initiative said, in a stark reminder of the importance of the Black press, papers are beginning to analyze their coverage of Black people, which we know about because of all our workshops, right? The papers are in largely Black cities have studied and confronted decades of negative news coverage on Black communities. Mm-hmm. So this is what the digital streets have been talking about. Other things in terms of Black press came up, such as negative things about Ukraine, which I thought was interesting. I didn't know that we called smearing Black press. That doesn't make me happy on the digital streets, as well as people, referencing organizations that are not Black owned. So, publishers, what do you think? Are the digital streets saying the right things? Are they misinformed? I see Chris has a big smile on his face. You want to start us off?
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about the Black press and you talk about, being Women's History Month. And the fact is that the Black press has always been ahead of the rest of society as it relates to diversity and inclusion and things of that nature. At a time when the media corps in general were dominated by men, particularly white males, there were Black women who were intricately and significantly involved in the Black press across this country as writers, as editors. I mean, covering stories, and we can go down a long list of women who've been involved with the Black press for a very long time. But we've created opportunities for people to have significant careers, to make a difference in their community, and we haven't been apologetic about that. Some of the things I think people kind of got disconnected with the Black press over the years when after the civil rights movement and things got to be integrated. But now people are starting to come back to the Black press. We're starting to see more of our young people coming back, and they've been looking for a way to get involved and make a difference in their community for so many years. And now they're seeing advocacy through the lens of the Black press and how they can be a part of it and creating change and having a voice. And that's the one thing that we've been across this country, is a voice for our community. Too often, they always say that people are trying to kill the messenger. And so we are the messengers across this country. And it's no secret that people have been trying to kill the Black press in a number of different ways. When you talk about access to advertising dollars, access to other resources that we need to expand our businesses and invest in our businesses, where have been redlined across this country. There are a ton of issues. And then and we're talking about the real Black press this morning, and we haven't really touched on what I call front companies. They put forth all these Black faces out front, but they're owned and operated by people outside of our community and controlled, and they control the news department and what gets dispersed. And so they put those companies in place to be able to build an audience and to pull advertising dollars away from the real Black press in an effort to kill the messengers. Well, you can't kill the messengers when we're committed to this institution of the Black press in America. And we've got people who are dedicated. We've worked with, far less for so many years, like Black folks all across this country. And so if you're going to try and shut us down one way or another, we're going to find another way to keep going. I mean, that's why you have institutions, and I call it an institution like the Afro, that's been around for 133 years. Why you have the Amsterdam News has been around for so long. You have the Atlanta Voice has been here. I mean, we've been in Seattle for over 50 years. And so we're going to keep continuing to push forward, telling our stories for our people the way that we know best to do it. And we're not going to apologize for it. But at the same time, we are dependent on our community to support us. And so we're doing the things that we do to also support the community. So it's a give and take relationship. It's a mutual beneficial relationship that all of us are really committed to.
Thanks, Chris. You were getting on the box. This is Black People versus the Real Black Press. You can tell when somebody's passionate about what they do, what they live, what they eat, what they breathe. And that's what you got to do. You can't just be here for a check in the Black Press. The check is we're checking everybody else, right? We have to check them when they're out of line. We have to even check each other because sometimes we as people get out of line. But, we're checking you in love, okay? Unless you just, if you don't accept love, then, you're checking yourself into a whole different direction. But the Black press, man, the digital streets, they're not saying a lot. Janice, what are you hearing down there in Atlanta about when you are in your circles and they, it's always somebody who's never heard of you. You run into someone.
And I think that's going to be the case going forward. A lot of people will say that they haven't heard, and maybe they haven't. But if you don't explore other options and to look for other venues, you will always be in a box, right? So it is important for us to expand our horizons, for us to look for other venues and other newspaper opportunities. And, I think for the Atlanta Voice, when we started, I think maybe a couple years into being in production, my father took our newspaper to the printer, and most of the printers that were printing papers at that point were all owned and operated. And when he got there one day, they said, we're not going to print the paper because we don't like the story on your front cover. And it was right after that my father said, I'm not going to let my voice not be heard so that people have an opportunity to read the truth and understand and digest the truth. So he bought his own printing press. And I believe the Afro owned their own printing press for a while as well. At some point, you realize it becomes cost ineffective to do that. But I think people are more open and honest about what they're listening to. I think we just have to figure out ways to continue to tell our story in different venues. So while I may not actively be engaged in TikTok, the paper is. We have to recognize that digital platforms are important, and we have to go there. So I'm really proud of the fact that, we had a group of young people to come into the office, several years ago, 2017. And I was at least open and honest enough to say, I don't know, and I can understand. Let me, tell me how we're going to do this. And the young man who actually, this is the anniversary of his death, Marshall Lattimore, actually came in and did a full transformation of what we were doing in our newsroom. And I think that made a big difference in how we look at news today. So if it's going to be important for us to be on digital platforms, then we need to do that. If it's important for us to tell our stories through Facebook and Twitter and anything digital or newsletters, let's do that. So it's going to be apparent upon us as newspaper owners and operators to make certain that we are trying to get into as many homes and households as we can. We need to tell the story of the businesses that are in our community that will not thrive or survive unless they have the support of other African-American business, people. The fact is, I think integration was a great situation, but it hurt Black businesses to a detrimental, situation. The fact is, we have a tendency to say sometimes that the white man's ice is colder. So rather than buying, going to the community store, then now we want to go to the major market store. Yeah, they do have more choices there, but can we continue to support Black businesses at the same time? And I think that's the message we need to get across today, is support us. You may not always agree, and yes, it could be better, and maybe we could expand the story. Then bring those comments back to us so that we will have the opportunity to help bring you into our fold.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. That's Janice Ware. the Atlanta Voice. Patrick, down there in Dallas,
Yes, sir.
in
Well,
Texas, where everything's big. How they thinking down there about the black press?
you don't want to know down here. I think the
I
national
want to
news
know,
covers how
Pat.
they're
I
thinking
want
down
to
here.
know.
But I think that the what Chris stated and what Janice has said is kind of like been one of the underlying jobs of the black press since its inception, which is a little bit of education. And sometimes that's education on who the black press is and why you should support them. And I think that, I mean, integration is a conversation we can have for hours. I agreement that it had its perks, but in sort of a long form, sort of situation, it had more harm than I believe it did, healing, because like Janice said, it's like the grass is greener in the white man's yard. So even if I can go get a white dentist, I'll go get that now. Some people really did make those decisions under the guise of integration when really it was self-hatred. And that trickled through a bunch of parts of our community. But I will say that being a little bit closer to the younger generations, I have seen a turn in understanding how turning your views and your resources inward can actually expand your ability to control and your own community. And so we've actually had a ton of younger folk who have pretty little to no experience in journalism, but understand that if they want to tell their own story in their way, we're the place to come tell it.
Yeah.
And, I wish I was a better, journalist. I'm looking at some of my journalism friends now. Like, I need you to come and like train these young folk, because I'm trying to sell stuff and they're trying to learn how to write things and tell stories, but they have the technical skills. They know how to edit video from basically birth right now. They can, put graphics and things together to make stuff compelling. And I think that as Janice spoke, it's like this generational understanding of whatever is needed, wherever the eyeballs are, is where you need to be. And if those eyeballs are on a phone or on something else in another 10 years, that's where you need to be. But you also need to understand that the way that the eyeballs are looking at it are different. And I think Chris could probably speak to that because he has a broader media scape of, like radio and audio and these kind of things of grabbing people's attention. But that's it. Each medium has its own way of grabbing attention. And one of the great things I learned at an NNPA conference actually a few years ago before COVID and all that was that all those social sites that we all just sort of keep gobbling up and putting our content on, all of those actually operate in a certain way. And if you're trying to go against the way it works to try to force your voice out there in that way, it actually hurts you. So it might as well go with the flow. Like, you're not going to put a bunch of long form prose on Twitter. You're going to have conversations that interact with each other. You're not putting up words mostly on Instagram. You're using photos to converse. And those kind of things where it's like even TikTok, which we have one of those too. If you're watching in Africa and want to watch the Dallas Weekly TikTok, apparently it's lit. I don't know because I don't really watch it, but the young woman that follows it for us tells me it's lit. So, but even those sort of brief informational bursts that people, imbibe and then move on their day, that gets you the eyeball you needed that, what is that? Why is that more relevant to me than some other things I'm going through? And it sort of clicks in certain people. And some other people you're not going to get. I'm sorry, we will have folks that just will not, jump on the ship with us. But that's not who we're talking to.
Yeah.
We're actually talking to the people who want to see themselves in more than just the thief, the murderer, or the rapist, who want to see the uplifting stories of their children, who want to hear about how to solve their own problems, and maybe not hear it with the "you're dumb" kind of tone to it. Maybe just sort of like, we all deal with this. Let's work it out. We talk about solution journalism. I feel like that's synonymous with the black press. I just had a whole conversation with some people. We do all these cohorts now. And I was just explaining what we do. And they were like, that sounds like solution journalism. I was like, sounds like the black press, but sure, we can coin it as whatever you need, but it's what we do. We're an advocate. We're an educator. We're the voice. People call us to figure out how to fix their car and where to get a lawyer, and we don't do either one of them things. But they know that we should be the ones that are the anchor, the centerpiece, that sun where the community spins around, where all the planets make sense. That's what we are usually supposed to be. And that's what we're all trying to get back to with all this digital stuff. We're just trying to get in there. But like Chris said, the resources are kind of slim and, dollars are tight and the economy is crazy and it's all scrounging for a dollar, but the commitment is there. The passion is there. The third, fourth, fifth, sixth generations are there. And it is something to say, and I'll shut up. I know I talk a lot. But when you've seen generational stuff passed down, it makes sense that it passes down. When you don't, it makes sense that it doesn't. So you might try to recreate the wheel because you never got given something that you can cultivate. Even in a weakened state, you can see the value of trying to make it strong because the next generation will live in a stronger world. You get me? And that's like
Yeah.
the whole mantra. So
Pat,
I think
you are preaching, brother. Listen. This is what this show was all about, Pat. You are preaching. This is the Black People versus Black Press Chicken Box episode. You're definitely on the box because this is where you get to speak your truth. Now, whether we agree, which I do, we do. Hopefully, the people who are watching it live now or the replay, if they don't agree, you don't need everybody to agree with you to make a move.
Mhm.
And a lot of times we don't have any kind of movement because of disagreement. And in the Black community, we disagree so much sometimes that we don't get anything accomplished. So if we could agree on some things, pool our resources, and come together, we could own one big Black press printing machine that prints all of our newspapers, FedEx, UPS, all of those things can get it there overnight, right? Our
Mhm.
digital products get there on time, on the second, when it happens live. Our legacy products are news that we see from our lens because we're not trying to beat the news. We keep up with the news happening in the digital format. But anyway, that's another conversation. That's the real Black press. That's my idea. I'll be glad to share it. Let's put up the press fund. But anyway, we are running. This is a show that probably has to come on again just because of the relevance that we need, and we need to do some TikToks together. I don't like TikTok either, like that. But you know what? As soon as I get on it, I can't get off of it. I'm just scrolling. I'm just watching everything, and I'm looking at all of the major influencers, people. And this is not a shout out for TikTok. TikTok is just a thing of the day. But Steve Harvey has 8 million. I'm like, everybody who's doing something in some kind of global has an impact or influence, they're on there, and it's not just children. So our news needs to be on there as well. The Black press needs to be, like you said, Pat. Thank you. Everywhere that the eyeballs are. All right, Dr. Draper, I'm gonna bounce past it to you because we may have skipped over some history. We all on this call know about the history, but let's just jump real quick.
Okay,
Just
real quick,
bring
but
it
let
up.
me first say thank you to Janice, Patrick, and Chris. I agree. Listen, I'm going to be the one who says by 2032, we're not going to be reading newspapers, right? That we're going to be doing, everything's going to come on our devices. A lot of it comes already. And kudos to the Black press. There are many members of the Black press who have gone to the next level with this. And so sometimes we get into our minds, speaking of stereotypes, that it's one way. My grandmother used to read this or whatever. Just because we've been around a long time doesn't mean that we are not changing in the midst of all of the changes. All right, history. This is Black Press Month. Next week is Black Press Week. You heard in the intro, if you were on, the first Black newspaper was Freedom's Journal. And Samuel Cornish and John Russwurm said then in their opening editorial, we wish to plead our own cause. Too often have others spoken for us. And so here we are, 195 years later, and we still wish to plead our own cause and speak for ourselves. And so by the early 20th century, there were Black papers serving almost every American city in the United States. I want to say today, there are only about 220 or so. Janice, you might help me with the number, but I think it's 200 to 220 Black newspapers in the entire country. Some of whom are struggling, as businesses do. All businesses are not alike. Some of whom are remaking ourselves to be more relevant in 2022. But there are not that many. And so Patrick mentioned NNPA. And so the National Newspaper Publishers Association, all of us belong to that association. Chris, Janice, Patrick, and I also are part of something called Word in Black, wordinblack.com. And so there were many, many more Black newspapers. And so the history of the Black press, many of you have heard about that, but we can't just stay mired in history, right? But during the civil rights era, African American newspapers, were at the forefront in the fight for equality, And I would submit that even now in 2022, listen, you can change the dateline. The George Floyd, the Breonna Taylors, and it's in
Yeah.
our cities. These things are still going on today. The discrimination and the racial inequity across our country, and the Black press are the ones that are speaking up to say, no, 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 that's not right. And not just because you had the television camera, but because we have video now too. So it's not just the writing of it, but we have video. And yes, we embrace all the social media channels and TikTok, and but on TikTok, it's 8 seconds. You got 8 seconds to get your attention, right? On Instagram, as Patrick said, it's photos. Facebook, according to young folk, they say it's for old people, but you look at the stats, there's some young people on that too. So social media we're going to use, but when we dig down deep into the issues of our day, we can't just give you headline news, and we can't just give you 8 seconds. We have to also be advocates to change things in this country and abroad, and support brothers and sisters in Africa whose news is still censored in a lot of places. They can't even write certain things, right, without it going through a government lens and filter. So I know that's a lot about the history plus some of what we're doing now. And so we're expanding all of our online digital platforms, and we need support. So Kevin said a shameless plug. It's not a shameless plug. It's an support the Black paper in your area. And if you don't have one in your area, start one or support another one that's close by.
Yeah.
I am off the box.
Yeah. So the tagline for the Atlanta Voice has always been, "A people without a voice cannot be heard." And I think several of you have mentioned that statement differently in this conversation. And the fact is, if the Black press is not here to tell the other side of the story, our sides are not going to be presented well. So it's going to be important for people to decide. I mean, it doesn't hurt you to sign up for our newsletters and let the information come into your phone or into your tablets. I think it's going to be important for us to support one another. I think it's also going to be important that we send a message out at this time that we need to vote. So we have a new campaign that we're starting right now, Voice Your Vote. Because if we don't have young people who march through the cities, to the streets of the cities, wherever crime was taking place or some injustice took place, it's going to be most important for us to have that vote and your voice at the ballot box. Because if we don't elect people that look like us or at least are sensitive to our causes, we're going to still be left behind.
I like to go back to something that Patrick had mentioned. He talked about people not getting on the ship or not jumping on the ship. And, there were also people who failed to follow Harriet Tubman. And so we have to understand that, there are different platforms that are here for different reasons. And, you can TikTok and hip hop all you want, but you have to understand that, we can't dance our way to freedom. And we're here as the Black press to educate and inform. And as Janice said, they are voice for voiceless people. In Seattle, we're a message from the people to the people, all different spins on the same premise of what we're doing. But I think it's important that people, they can support the Black press in a number of ways. One of the best things that you can do to support the Black press, if you don't take out a subscription, if you don't sign up for a newsletter, but you can share our information off of our websites or other digital platforms through your social media platforms. And also, you can talk to your friends about and family about articles that are in these various publications. In addition to that, one of the most powerful things that you can do if you want to get a subscription is to have it sent to your office. That way, everybody in your office can see what's going on with the Black press in your city. And be sure you can, as you walk down the street, if you're working downtown, once we return to people going back to work in person, if you're walking down the street, going to the coffee shop, what's wrong with carrying a copy of the Afro or the Atlanta Voice or the Dallas Weekly underneath your arm as you're going to and from meetings or just going to take a break?
Yeah,
that's great, Chris. Let me add the other thing
That sounds out there, huh, Chris?
Yes, sir.
The other thing you can do is when you know that something's happening in your community, don't run to the white press and hope to get that, beg somebody to put your story in. You know what? If the Black press has always been known for getting the story right and getting the story first, And so we need those of you in the community. You know what? The white press usually, because they can't. They're not going to write about your daughter's wedding and your son's graduation. The black press will. But there are other things that happen in our community that we should come to the black press first, and instead of trying to convince somebody else to put it into their publication. We want to do that. We want to build that relationship with our community, because what's happening in your community is important to us. We don't have the same resources that community does. Community is much bigger than we are. So let us know. Send us an email. Send us an IM, a DM, or something. Let us know what's happening in your community.
Absolutely. Before we finish up, because the hour goes fast, right? It goes slow for some reason when you're on these silly Zoom meetings. This conversation is moving fast, and we don't want you to forget. It is free, ladies and gentlemen. The second annual Black Business Matters. I'm gonna try to add it to the screen. Can you guys hear me? Hear the video?
Look at my fit. Shorty on me cause I'm it. Infinite drip. They got infinite drip. Roll up on me cause I'm lit. Sauce falling off me, it don't slip. I got the infinite drip. They got infinite drip. I know my dripping is influential. Watch how I drip on this instrumental. Came from dipping, serving in the rental. They don't know what I've been through. Chuck Taylor's on, yeah, my kicks cheap. I'm fly and they fit me. She find us and she get me, so she get D. I mean swiftly. Pack up and bro. Think it's time to take this drip on the road. Show at the show. Sold out dates, that be the goal. 1 million sold. People know me cause I'm it. Infinite drip. They got infinite drip. Roll up on me cause I'm lit. Sauce falling off me, it don't slip. I got that infinite drip. They got infinite drip.
So that is our infinite drip, y'all. Now that's the Women Who Win Conference. All right, it's our second annual Black Business Matters. It is free. Go to theafro.com now and register. You are going to have some phenomenal women who are knocking it out the box. Fellas, you go too, because we need a little boost. The ladies are handling their business out there in these streets, these digital streets, and all over the world. This is our first annual Women Who Win Conference as part of the Black Business Matters. You know what? The women who win is so phenomenal. I think they need their own lane that we can just do that annually. But it's going to be amazing. It's going to be live. It's going to be at the same time as Chicken BOXX on March 24th. So mark your calendars. There it is. All right. Black people versus the Black press. And we got Janice Ware, publisher of the Atlanta Voice, Chris Bennett, the Seattle Media, and Patrick. Is it the Dallas Weekly, right? I'll make sure I'm saying it right. All right. Who are joining in as guests. They are our colleagues, our friends, and they're in the fight with us as we push forward in this journey. Just to be the hub of information. That's what we are. We are the community hub of information. No, we don't do all these things like you said, but we can give you the information and show you where to go on a regular basis. And Black Press has some cool history, y'all. So the archives are unrivaled. Speaking of that, before we get on the box and give our final words, the Afro Archives, over 130 years, we have an Afro fact every week. So Misha, if you just share the quick fact with us, because somebody loves the fact. I love it. So let's get the Afro fact and let's keep it moving.
Yeah, and I'll use this as my time on the box. This week's Afro fact is inspired by the March 10th, 1962 edition. And the headline read, "Boycott ends as judge orders segregation ban." And according to the article, in the wake of a federal court decision outlawing segregation on city buses, the month-long bus boycott was lifted in Macon, Georgia at 12:01 Sunday morning. District Judge W.A. Booty issued an injunction prohibiting city or busy company officials from segregation laws, ordinances, or regulations. He ruled against sophisticated and simple-minded, and I quote from Judge Booty, attempts to evade his decision. And in making his ruling, Judge Booty blocked a last-ditch effort by the county transit company and by city officials to maintain segregation. And that was one crawl closer to equal rights. And we had it in the Afro on March 10th, 1962. So that's this week's Afro fact. And of course, we all hear about the bus boycott, but it was so cool to read that. And
I was just laughing because you just kept saying Judge Booty, and I'm thinking about Judge Judy, not Judge Booty, but it was hilarious.
I mean, Judge Booty is a funny name in and of itself. And then the fact that it rhymes with Judge Judy just takes it to the next level. Clearly, Judge Booty didn't play no games, though. And shout out to him for outlawing these segregation. So I thought that was really cool. And I'll use this time to thank all of our guests. And I'm so incredibly inspired by all of you and your ability to ensure that our stories are told and to lead organizations as you do to make it happen.
Absolutely. And everybody tuning in, Joel, Craig just put in that the Sun Paper, Baltimore, our brother, whatever, the other paper, released a statement apologizing for misrepresenting the Black community for years. So, after a while, guilt has set into the new generations, and they have said that they have misrepresented. So that means that they intentionally spilled and spewed negativity in our community, y'all. Well, at least they apologize. Do we accept it? I don't know. See nobody shaking their head. Well, you gotta forgive, y'all. Okay, let's keep it moving. All right. So the final words on the box. Patrick, you're on the box, my friend. Final words.
Final words. All right. So my final words is going to be a little bit more what we're talking about the business wise. For those of us Black folk that own businesses and are looking to find that ecosystem, use the Black press for that. Understand that your advertising dollars help us to create the information content machines that we put out information, and at the same time market your businesses to your own community, of which we are a massive spending community. Don't forget your marketing dollars are tax deductible. So marketing with the Black press is like investing in your own business. Ask any accountant. I didn't make that up. So feel free to follow all of us, the NNPA, the Word in Black, every single publication that is represented here. And I thank y'all so much for having me and appreciate all of the history and knowledge.
Chris, you are welcome anytime, man. Chicken BOXX, when you
Lost
come to
connection.
Baltimore, I got you. Janice, were you saying something? I'm sorry. Can you hear us, Janice?
I think Janice lost a little connection.
She lost connection. We can see her. All right, Chris.
I'll keep it real simple. Just want everybody to make a conscious effort to make the Black press a part of your daily life. You can seek news and information. You can seek out videos. We will appreciate if you would do the same thing as it pertains to the Black press. So just make the Black press a part of your daily life.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris, for getting up early in the morning. That shows your commitment not only to your friends, but to the Black press. And we thank you for your input. And I would definitely watch the replay because y'all dropped some nuggets today. Janice, are you back with us? I think Janice dropped. Dr. Draper, final words.
Well, I just want to thank Chris, Patrick, and Janice. Listen, we are stronger together. And the Black press is a force to be reckoned with because the Black community is a force. Let's continue to work together. We can't afford to have another Black paper close its doors. And that has happened as well. We know the newspapers across the country have been really struggling economically. The Black press, because of who we are, this is not strange to us. We've struggled our whole 195 years to survive. And so we say at the Afro, we're still here, but we don't take our community for granted. We need our community. And so some of you work for companies, as Patrick said, that have advertising dollars, they have sponsorship dollars, and they come to the Black press and say, hey, we want you to run this free as a press release. And they'll go to other press and they will actually purchase an advertisement for it. And so I want us to be astute of consumers as well and support those who support you, support those who support us.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Patrick, Chris, and Janice. And, of course, Jewel, Nicole, Craig, everybody out there listening who hung out with us just to learn more about the Black press and who contributed to the conversation. This will, of course, be a replay. You can share, guys. just go to Afro's Facebook page and share it with somebody. Share it with your children. Go to one of these websites of African American owned, the Real Black Press, and follow them. Just show up every now and then. Hit a like. You know, you don't have, it doesn't always have to be money. Just a like and a share. But until next time, and until next week, I'm Kevin Impeccable Peck, representing Gen X, Dr. Draper, my millennial boomer friend, and Patrick is still hanging out with us, who says, yeah, technically he's a millennial, but he doesn't think like it. So he's on another level. He broke out of it, or maybe he's a hybrid. But until next time, everybody have a good day. And remember, if you do anything great for yourself, just smile. It'll change your day. Smile on the phone and call one of our seniors up because they love to hear from you. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.